Herkese tekrar merhabalar. Affedersiniz. Kahve molasının ardından herkes herhalde daha enerjik. İnsanlar birbiriyle konuşabildi. Ben de aynı enerjiyi şu an daha net hissedebiliyorum. Öğle arasından hemen önceki session'ımızda iki konuşmacımızı ağırlıyoruz. Bunlardan ilki Richard Millington. Richard'ı biz nerede tanıdık? SEO'da aslında her öğle tatili farklı dünyadaki konferansları danışmanlarımızla beraber inceleyip oradaki know-how'u almaya çalışıyoruz. Bunlardan biri de geçtiğimiz aylarda yaptığımız Mozcon'da hackathon'uydu. 2-3 session'ı üst üste alıp üzerinden tartıştığımız çok güzel işbirlikleri oldu. Tabii Mozcon biliyorsunuz dünyadaki en büyük pazarlama konferanslarından birisi. Seattle'da yapılıyor. Bütün bir ekip olarak katılamıyoruz ama videoları incelediğimiz zaman gerçekten bütün bir ekip fikir belirttik. Richard'ın sunumuna geldikten sonra bitti ve hepimiz birbirimize baktık ve dedik ki ya biz bir komünite yaratmalıyız. Bu inanılmaz bir şey. Çünkü Richard'ın zaten Fever Bee'de yaptığı iş tamamen community creation üzerine. Bize çok farklı bir vizyon kattı. İngiltere'de de olduğunu duyunca mutlaka SEO'da için davet etmek istedik. O da bizi kırmadı. Bu yönüyle bizi gerçekten bu konuşma çok etkilemişti. Umarım sizin için de güzel bir izlenim bırakabilir. Aynı zamanda yakın vadede bizim de yaratacağımız dijital medya komünitesi için çok güzel inspiration'lar almıştık Richard'tan. Sözü fazla uzatmadan işin ehli Richard'a sözü bırakayım.
Good morning, Istanbul. Wow. This is a really amazing event. I can't see any of you in the crowd at all, but I think it's really an amazing event. My wife and I were in Istanbul, I think, around a year ago for the first time, and it is by far one of my favorite cities in the world, and I'm so jealous of you guys that you get to live here. So, one of the things I was worried about coming to an event like this is that every single speaker seems to be an incredible SEO expert, and I'm not. And I was worried about that, and I was talking to the organizers who said, don't worry, there's a lot of people in this audience that want to build an online community, or there's a lot of people that are building an online community. So let's find out. Raise your hand if you're building an online community right now. Not one of you. Some of you. Raise your hands really high, please. Awesome. Raise your hands if you're not building an online community right now. Okay. So for those of you that didn't raise your hand, how many of you are in a WhatsApp group? How many of you are in a Facebook group? How many of you are in a LinkedIn group? How many of you send an email around to your friends or your team at work? And how many of you have friends that you're going to hang out with this weekend? How many of you are going to sit down with a meal with your family tonight? And how many of you still don't think that you are in some kind of community? Whether we call it that or not, I think every single person in this room is building some kind of community. Every single one of us is in some kind of social group. And from what I know, and my company's been doing this for around 7 years now, is that we can be so much better at building these kinds of groups if we just apply some basic principles. A couple of years ago, my company decided to launch a very meta-style community, a community for people that build communities, and just to find out what would happen. And here's some of the things that occurred. First, the people in our own community began telling us, the biggest challenge we have is getting my boss to support me. So we decided to develop a course around that and sell it to the people that wanted to learn how to do that. The second thing they said is that I want to learn the psychology behind communities. I want to know why people join and participate in communities. So again, we developed a course around that and sold it to the people that told us that they wanted that. Then we found out that our clients wanted an exclusive place where they can talk to other people about how to build online communities in large organizations. So we created a separate part of our own community, a private membership part of our community, which was $1,000 a month. And this simple thing turned our business from a 6-figure business to a 7-figure business. Just creating a community and listening to our members and helping them or asking them what they wanted and developing products we can sell to them, that turned our business from a 6-figure business to a 7-figure business in a couple of years. Now, I have no idea what kind of companies you run. I have no idea how big they are. But I think if we can do that with just 7 people, that's a big win for us. And we didn't even talk about the SEO benefits of doing that. One of the things we realized when we began building these communities is that they are powerful SEO tools. They are powerful SEO tools. A friend of mine runs this amazing community for people that raise chickens in their backyard. It's one of my favorite communities of all time. And what he found was that when he began launching this community, the number of inbound links he received went higher and higher and higher. If you search for chickens or any term related to raising chickens today, you're going to find his community. If you search for an online community today, if you search for online community, we come up in the first page of search results, and we've never spent a penny on SEO, at least not on traditional SEO. Communities are powerful SEO tools. And what we also find, and what I think Marcus was talking about very briefly this morning, is that when you build a community, you suddenly start having tens, hundreds, or even thousands of people that start creating content on your behalf. So many search results today get to a discussion. So many search results today get to a discussion. The amount of traffic we get to our site now is far, far higher than what it used to be, simply because we launched a community. So I think we have a huge opportunity today to start building these communities. I think we spend so much time, so much money, and so much energy getting people to visit our site for the very first time. What a community does is that it gets people to visit that site every single day. We know that most of our clients today, most of the people we want to work with, most of the people that we admire most in our industry visit our community every single day. And we've seen this happen for clients, we've seen it happen in so many other types of sectors, that if you're not building a community today, I would definitely consider it. It is such a powerful tool to get more people to visit your site, to keep them there every single day, and find ways that you can sell products and services to them that perhaps we haven't even considered yet. But there's a problem. When it comes to building online communities, we aren't that good at doing it. When it comes to building online communities, what we tend to find is that organizations do it the wrong way. It turns out we're actually very good at getting people to visit a website. We are really good at that. But we are terrible at converting them to regular, active members of our community. We find that the conversion rate tends to vary a lot by how big your community is. So if your community or the people visiting your site is maybe 0 to 100 people a day, the conversion rate to become a registered member is around 30%. If you have, say, 10,000, if you have 100,000, then it drops to around 0.25%. Now, the problem with this is that 1% of people that visit a community will register. 15% who register would ever participate in that community. And 20% that participate will still be regular active members 6 months later. Now alone, these numbers don't seem all that bad. But when you combine them, this is what we realize. That for most kinds of communities today, to get one active member, one regular active member, you usually need 3,333 people to visit that site. So if you work for a very large organization, that might just be something you can actually do. But if you don't, we have to find another way of going about this. If your sector is growing by a certain rate every single year, and you're churning through all your members, you're going to run out of members to join your community really, really fast. So I think this. Right now, most people building communities are in a life and death struggle for member retention, and we don't even know it. Most people that get so much traffic to visit their website do a really bad job of keeping that traffic there. I think there is huge potential to do much better here. In London, a lot of the water pipes built beneath the city were developed during the Victorian era. And there was a study last year that was really interesting. which said around 25% of the water never reaches the homes because it keeps leaking out of the pipes. And so whenever the government says, we need a hose pipe ban, or we need to conserve more water, all of which is accurate. But the number one thing you need is to fix the damn pipes. You need to stop all these people leaking out of your community system. We need to convert that traffic, and we can do a much better job of that today than what we've done in the past. And the way we go about this isn't to keep doing what we're doing right now. We can't keep being super, super nice to people and hope that they convert. We can't use any other tool that we've already been using. We have to combine the technology with the data and then the psychology. And the psychology is really important, because if we really know how people think, if we really know what gets people to join and participate in any kind of social group, then we're going to have a power drill that we can use to build any kind of community that we ever like, any kind of social group that we ever like. If we want to build much stronger WhatsApp groups, if we want a closer team at work, if we want to have our friends more united than what they are today, then we can learn so much more, and we can do a much better job if we understand the psychology behind why people join and participate in these kinds of communities. So I'm going to take you through a couple of layers of this, beginning at the very easy level and moving up to the very advanced level, and we'll see how we do. So the first thing is, how do we turn people that visit a community website or any platform into a registered member? Well, we can look this up in Google Analytics. We can see how many people visit that registration page, and then we can see how many of them convert into an active member. And what we can very quickly discover is that our conversion rates usually aren't that good. But that's great, because once we know this, we can start thinking, okay, how do I increase that? How do I get more people to become a registered member? So one option is that we can gate it. We can say, if you want to see what's inside this community, you have to register. You have to give us your information. But there's a problem with that. Does anyone know what it is? Just shout out the answer. It's a quiet group today. So the problem is that you lose all the SEO traffic as a result of that. And if you are going to do it, then at least adapt it to the different kinds of audiences that you have. Second is that we can have a bigger and brighter registration box. But the challenge with this is that no matter how big we make this registration box on any website or any community, not that many people are going to see it. If we go to our website, if we look at the Google Analytics, we tend to find that the most popular page on our website, perhaps many of your websites as well, is the landing page, which is no surprise. We find that around 18% of people that visit our community do it via the landing page. So you might think, okay, let's put a registration box on that landing page. Let's make it big and bright. Let's drive everyone to it. But if 18% of people do this, that means that 82% of people will never see it. 82% of people that visit our landing page will never see this, which makes it kind of a bad tactic. It's going to have some effect, but not a huge effect. Another approach is what we call the New York Times approach, which is you get a certain number of clicks, you can visit a certain number of articles, you can do a certain number of things, but then you are required to register to join that community. And this is better because you keep all the SEO traffic you have, and you convert a lot more people into a registered member of that community. We did this, and we found that our conversion rates rose by around 17% overnight. We're now capturing 17% more of that traffic than what we used to, and we have all the SEO results as well. A more effective tactic we've found is to use the most popular content and articles that have already been created. So every one of you on every one of your websites has a long tail of traffic. I'm guessing that most people visit your landing page, and that's the most popular page. But then you'll find all these other pages beneath that, which might contain 2% of your traffic, 1%, 1%, 1%. And we find that if we can put these calls to action, these appeals to join the community, in all these pages down this section here, we can, instead of just reaching that 18%, we find that we can reach 50%. We find that we can reach 60%. We find that we can triple the number of people that are registering to join a community almost overnight. These are very effective tactics to capture more of the traffic. So we want to be adding a call to action into the most popular areas of our community. We want to be going down that long tail, using the things that are already really popular, using the things that you've spent so much time already creating, and then turning that into an asset to capture more people. Okay, level 2. We have to be asking people to do the right things. And I'm going to use online communities as an example, but this works for any kind of social group that you're in right now. You can do it at lunch if you like. So, one of the things we find is that we are very terrible at inviting people to participate in any kind of group. I was at a workshop in September about storytelling and how you tell great stories in any kind of social group. And they had this trained facilitator there. And his job was to get us to like one another. So the first thing he did, he went round the room and he told everyone to take 90 seconds to introduce yourself. There were 18 of us in that room. That took 27 minutes. That's a long time to be introducing yourselves. Then he handed out these cards where we had to write interesting facts about ourselves. And then he collected all of those facts in. And then he'd draw one, he'd read out the facts, and we'd had to guess who that was in that group. That took another 45 minutes. This is a huge waste of time. If you think of what we ask people to do, far too often in online communities, far too often in any kind of a social group, we ask people to introduce yourself to the entire group. If I was going to think of the most effective way to scare people from ever participating in any kind of social group, it would be to tell them to go in front of everyone like this and introduce yourself to the entire group. This is not a good idea. It's not interesting to your current members, and it's not very effective for your new members. It's intimidating, and it drives people away. The second least effective thing is to ask people to complete all their profile information before even joining or participating in a community. Think about it. If you see your friends in a bar or anywhere, and you want to meet up with them, do you want to spend your time filling in information first? The first thing we want to do is to get people to interact with each other. Very often, when people join a community, we send out these massive emails with lots of different things to do. And I don't know if you've read about the paradox of choice, but what we tend to find is that the more options we have, the less likely we are to take any of them. So we can do a much better job at the moment. What we also tend to do is that when people visit a website, we say, oh, connect with people like you here, or welcome to the group, or say something, anything. And the problem with this is that we don't wake up in the morning thinking, I just wish I could connect and share and be welcome today. We want to be doing something specific. The way we meet people is that there's an activity that we want to be doing, other people are doing that same activity, and then we get to meet them. So this raises the question, what is a really good call to action? What is the single most effective way to engage people in an online or offline community? And by far, the most effective way is to invite them to do something specific. Stop inviting people to join a group and invite people to do something within the group. Never invite someone to join a group, invite someone to do something within that group. And that something must interest both your new members and your old members as well. So we have a framework we use here, which is whenever anyone joins one of our communities or one of our clients' communities, we want them to share one of 4 things. 1, what are you doing? 2, what are you thinking? 3, what are you feeling? Or 4, what are you worried about? What are you scared of? So by doing, we're talking about what are you working on? The most effective kind of discussion we've found for any kind of business-to-business community is to ask people, what are you working on right now? Because if you know what I'm working on, and I know what you're working on, we can find opportunities to collaborate. We can find that we're working on the same things. Within large organizations, if everyone knows what each other is working on, they can find the duplication of work that they can help each other out with. We find it so easy and engaging for everyone to know what everyone is working on. We find listing what upcoming events are taking place a very effective tool. So in B2B communities, we usually look at what are you doing? What are you working on right now? Second, in more emotional support kind of communities, we want to know what are you thinking? What have you recently learned? What books have you recently read? Because if every single person did this, what are we going to find? Is that everyone is learning lots from that community every single day. Everyone's going to keep visiting that community to learn more about that topic. That's a very powerful thing to have. Third is, what are you feeling? What are you happy or sad or angry about at any specific situation? Because if I'm very angry about something, what is the absolute one thing that I want? I want to find other people that are also angry about it. If I'm really happy about something, I want to find other people that are also happy. I want to know that my emotions, my emotional state, is shared by other people that I consider my peers. So if you can get people to share what they're feeling, if you can get them to disclose that kind of information, you'll find that far more people participate. And finally, what are you worried about? What is your biggest fear? What do you think is going to affect your industry in a negative way? Because one of the biggest motivators for anyone in any kind of social group is to help someone else. And so if we find ways that we can help them, especially overcome their biggest challenge, that's going to get far more newcomers engaged and far, far, far more of your current members engaged as well. Okay, level 3. This is where we go very deep into the psychology side. Do any of you have an interest in psychology at all? Quick show of hands. Some of you. So you're going to find I'm about to really butcher a lot of very complex psychological theories to make really unique points. A lot of people I know want to keep members active in their community or their social groups for life, which is a wonderful dream, but it's just a dream. We change our friends every 2 to 3 years. We change the jobs we have every 2 to 3 years. So the idea that we're going to keep people for life probably isn't going to happen. But what we do find is that it's possible to keep people actively engaged for around 2 to 3 years. And this is a very powerful tool to do. But to do that, we have to understand what motivates them. How many of you have seen the Maslow hierarchy of needs before? Most people in this room? Okay. If you're using this for your work in any particular way, please stop doing it. There is no evidence that supports that Maslow was right at all. What we do want to be using instead is what's called self-determination theory. There's a lot of studies, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of research today that says that self-determination theory is what drives us in any particular time. It says that human beings have 3 universal needs, which are the need to be competent in our surroundings, which is the need to be autonomous, to act in ways that we want to act, to be true to the own values we have. And third is to be socially connected to each other. 3 basic needs. And if we want to engage people in any social group over the long term, we need to satisfy these basic needs: the competence, the autonomy, and the need for relatedness. The problem we have is that everyone in every kind of social group says, I'm too busy to participate. Almost every single client we ever have says, the biggest challenge I have is that my audience are too busy. And that's not true. It's not that they're too busy, it's that the community just isn't a big enough priority for them. What do we do when we get to work in the morning? We check our email, right? Then what do? We might check Slack, we might check blogs, we might check the relevant news sites. And way down here at the end, that's when we finally get around to visiting a community, especially a community based around a topic. The problem is that we typically design communities just to attract people that want information, kind of like search in a way. If there's a challenge, if there's a question that I don't know the answer to, I might visit a community and ask a question to get the answer. And that's great, except if you know how a habit is formed, if we know what gets people to visit a site every single day, we know that there has to be a trigger. That trigger leads to an action. That action has a variable reward that loads another action, which gets us to participate again. Now, if we are designing a community, if we are designing any kind of social group at all, just as a place for people to get information, then they're only going to visit when they want information. And that might be once a week, that might be once a month, or it might be never. So we need to satisfy the social needs as much as we satisfy the need for information. We need to make the communities we're building a place where you satisfy your social needs as well. How many of you were blogging around 2006, 2007? Any of you? And how many of you remember Technorati? Just a few of you. So technorati, I think, was the most evil thing that was ever invented. And it was evil because it ranked every single blog on the internet. And it ranked you by the number of inbound links that you received. And this was fine, except they did a study which found the people that kept blogging over the long term did so because they received 3 inbound links within their first 3 blog posts. The people that kept blogging found out that there was a unique value that they could contribute in the world. This is the need for competence that we have. What we find is that members will continue to participate in social groups if they feel they can make a unique, valuable contribution. And you must find this in your own social groups as well, their own communities that you participate in. People will continue to participate if they feel they can make a unique, useful contribution. So the first thing we want to be doing when people join a community, when people join your mailing list, is to reach out and ask them about their experience and their expertise. Because once we know what their experience and expertise is, we can find ways they can use that within the community. But the challenge we have is that most people are way too shy to say, hey, I'm an expert in SEO. So what we often have to do is label their expertise. This takes a little more time, but it's far more effective. So when someone joins a community, here's what we might do. So first, we will look them up. We can put their name or their email address into a search engine. We can find their LinkedIn profile, their Twitter, any information about them. And what we notice is that this person here is an expert on the legal side as well. There's not many people working in the community space that have a legal background. So then we can drop her a note and say, hey, it's great to have you in the community. I noticed that you have a legal background as well. Would you mind participating in this discussion about the legal side of online communities? And what that means is that she then feels appreciated. She then feels that she can make that unique, useful contribution based upon her own background. So we want to be very specific when people join a community where they can contribute. A lot of us are fooled by the myth that people would join a community and find their own way. That's not usually what happens. We want to be very specific where people can make a contribution. And when they do make a good contribution, we want to highlight that to everyone else. If we can highlight that to everyone else, it shows the current person, I should keep doing this. And it shows everyone else that they should be making great contributions as well. And what we also want to be doing is writing blog posts or mentioning in the newsletters. We know they made a great contribution, so let's find ways that we can amplify that. Let's find ways that we can document that information. One of the most amazing things that you can do when it comes to building a community is to document the best advice shared. Create a book or an ebook of some kind, just sharing the best tips of your members. You can publish that on a regular basis, and it barely costs you a thing. And it's going to really engage people in a community. Have a wiki where people can build up a shared resource. Then that becomes a very powerful draw and a very useful on the SEO side as well. Then we might turn this person into an expert and say, would you like to give a webinar about how to do the legal side of communities? Would you like to share your expertise with everyone else? We can give her her own blog in the community. We can give her her own area of that community. Ask me anything within that community. It's a very powerful thing to do. And it's something that we can all do really, really well. Second, the autonomy. People will continue participating in social groups if they have autonomy, which means they feel they can act in line with their true values and their true beliefs. The biggest mistake we make is that people, when they join a community, are told, you must do this, you must not do this, you must do this, which every single time we do that, we compromise their need for autonomy. And it's not even autonomy, it's perceived autonomy support. The more we believe that people support our need for autonomy, the more we're going to participate in that social group. I'm betting most of your friendship groups support you to be who you are rather than trying to change who you are. And that's why it works. So the question is, how do we design groups that are going to support this need for autonomy? And there are a couple of steps here. The first one is we need to be measuring what's going on, recruiting and training people to help, and then using the other tools that are at our disposal. So first we want to measure it. So you can get the slides after this. But if we go to, say, selfdeterminationtheory.org, we can get a survey here, and we can measure in any kind of group whether people feel that their need for autonomy is being supported. Second, we want to recruit people that are going to help scale this. If we put a post up in a community, we'll have 10 people that will want to volunteer to help. 3 of them will usually be fairly reliable. 2 of them will do it over the long term. These are people that can greet new members as they arrive. And then we want to train them in a process that we call ALCO, which is to ask lots of questions, listen, not just to what they're saying, but to what they're not saying, and then create options where they can participate. So here's what I mean. Let's imagine that if we send out an email, an automated message that comes from us when people join, we can ask them a few questions like, what do you want to achieve in this group? What do you really believe in? What do you most like about this topic, about this field? And then when they respond, those responses will come to us. So we have to be asking those questions to create that understanding. The only way that members can feel like that a group supports their need for autonomy is if someone else has actually made the effort to find out what they're interested in. What specific part of that topic, what part of that field do they want to be participating in? And then once we have that information, we can design a specific way for them to participate in that group. They might be running a column. They might be giving feedback. They might be finding experts. Or it might be just asking people, how would you like to be involved in this group? And then explain to them how they can do that. We find that the conversion rates are far, far higher if we do this. And then we want to follow up and sustain interest. If you go to inbox.google.com, you can set a reminder to follow up on anyone that's joined and find out 3 weeks later, 3 months later, if they're still participating. Even if you have, say, 300 members, even if you're doing this 1,000 times a year, that's 3 people a day. It's very possible to be doing this. And finally, we want to tackle the social relatedness side of things. The only people that are ever really in a community are people that feel they are in a community. A community works at a psychological level. It doesn't matter if we've registered. It matters if psychologically we feel connected to the other people in the group. And there are a lot of things that we can do to influence this. So first, we have to look for things that are signs that there is a sense of community here. So we look for references to the past. We look for how many members mention other members by name. We look for any inside jokes or inside phrases that have formed. We look for how much people disclose about themselves within the social group. The more I disclose about myself in any social group, the more trust I feel in that group. We look for whether they're forming, whether they are connecting outside the site, at events or other places, and look to see what subgroups are developing. So if you're running any kind of group, here's some really simple things you can do to develop a stronger sense of community. First, reference the past more often. There's a lot of research that says that the more you reference the past, the more you reference things in the past, the more you develop a shared history among your members. And a shared history is a powerful thing. I think we can all agree that. So you can create a sense of shared history just by referencing the past more often. Second, mention members by name. There's a temptation, especially for organizations, to always refer to the community as one big homogeneous group. That's a bad idea. What we want to be doing instead is mentioning individual members by name. If you know, for example, that your members have recently had a birthday, got married, got a promotion, have achieved something in their lives, then you can mention that. You can have a content page in your community that acts like a local newspaper for that local community. The best content for any kind of community is content about the community, because no one else in the world can ever steal that content. And then we want to be increasing the level of self-disclosure. Very often people will go to an online group and say, what is the best tool to do X? What is the best SEO tool? But what do they mean by best? Do they mean the one that is most widely used? Do they mean the one that is cheapest, has the most features? What do they mean by best? What we want to be doing instead is turning these discussions into an opportunity to have more self-disclosure, which is, can you tell us more about what you're trying to achieve? Can you tell us more about your organization? Because when we have that information, we find that people begin to reciprocate that self-disclosure. You tell me something about you, I tell myself something about me. That's a very powerful thing to have. And the more you can push people to give more detailed answers, more researched answers, to reveal more about themselves, the more you build a stronger sense of community. The easiest thing to do when someone asks a question is a community manager is to answer it, thinking, I know the answer to this. We don't want to be doing that. We want to be asking more questions that's going to get them more engaged. The more clarifying questions we ask, the more people have a reason to come back and visit that community again and again and again. We also want to be looking for both online and offline events that people can attend. Even if they're not our own events, if we could be the place where people come and visit to see what events are coming up in our industry, that's going to be the place where they come and visit. So, and finally, we want to be having opportunities where people can create and promote their own events, where people can say, hey, I know a lot about this, I'd like to do a webinar in this community. Is there anyone else that would be interested in being involved? And then we want to be looking for rituals as well. We know that almost every kind of social group that has ever existed, that has succeeded for a long period of time, has had a ritual, some kind of ritual that they do for newcomers. What we do in a lot of the B2B communities we work with is after a year or after a month, we ask the newcomers in that group, what is the funniest story? What is your best experience in this topic? What is your most remarkable moment within this field, within this company? How did you learn to do this? Just simple stories that they can share that become part of the ritual of that group. And every single person that goes through that ritual, through that tradition, begins to accept the identity of that community. So this is what we do at the long-term stage, is that we look at the three levels, the competence, the autonomy, the relatedness. We see how far members are progressing down each particular one, and then we design very specific interventions that are going to knock them further along that path. And that's a secret to doing what we're doing. Okay, so a quick summary today. One, we want to find out what people are doing, thinking, and feeling, and putting calls to action to participate in those discussions in the areas of our websites where people already visit. You can really integrate the content and the community side. Second, we want to be using our communications tools more effectively than what we do at the moment. Third, we want to be soliciting a member's unique experience and expertise. Members will always continue participating if they feel they can make unique, useful contributions, and we have to make them feel that they can make those unique, useful contributions. Then we want to give people more autonomy to act in line with their own true values and beliefs. And finally, we want to build stronger connections between members. We want to have more references to the past. We want to be mentioning more members by name. We want to be writing about what our members are doing, not just about what we're doing. And if we do that, we're going to build far more successful online communities. We're going to build the kind of communities that are going to have a huge impact on your business, even more so than on ours. And I really hope you do that. Istanbul, it's been amazing to speak to you. If you want half my book, you can download it for free at download.feedback.com. Thank you so, so much.
I have some questions for you. Thank you for this presentation, and it's really mind-blowing for me. Creating a community depends on psychology and a bit sociology. And
sure.
So in this situation, do you know any community to build communities? It's an interesting question. Comes from one of our attendees. Do you have any community? Do you have any community to create communities? Maybe Favorby might be one of the examples.
Sure. So we have our own site. If you go to the favorby.com site, you can find our community there. If you go to CMX Hub, they have a great community there of people that are building communities. And there are lots of individual sector ones. If you work in a non-profit space, there's some people who I can't remember, so contact me after this. There's a community roundtable if you work at an enterprise level. And there's a knowledge management, I think it's called KIN. You'll have to look them up with knowledge management for internal sharing. But there's lots of really good communities around at the moment. I think there's an incredible number of people that are doing fantastic work in this.
Yeah, and you also answered this question, but what's next? Do you refer any blogs or books about this situation?
Blogs and books. So I think there's a couple of great books. I think the best way to learn about doing communities, especially in the book world is to look slightly outside of the field. So we tend to read a lot on the psychology side, the Robert Cialdini book on influence, the books on groups, the Clay Shirky work, and there's one more whose name I can't remember. But what I'll do, I'll publish a list after this and I'll send it through to you. My brain's gone a bit dead.
Okay, that's all. Thank you so much for your presentation.